My pleasure.
There is a separate issue for Ted Cruz if you consider efforts in New York and Illinois, 2 states, where there's an effort to take him off the ballot, questioning his citizenship. Of course, born in Canada, but to a mother who was an American citizen. I think you're familiar with the backstory here, and to hear the Cruz people tell it. No story. Try telling that to Roger Bernstein, who's soon to have the senator taken off the New York ballot. Under what grounds, Roger?
Well, you know, it's interesting to discuss this. We really should start with Marco Rubio, because the same legal doctrines apply to Marco Rubio that apply to Senator Cruz. And when Donald Trump took a shot at Marco Rubio, that was a very cheap shot. It was really inappropriate. The place where you're born governs your eligibility to be the United States president. The Constitution, when it was drafted in 1788, said that the president, unlike a senator or a congressman, must be a so-called natural-born citizen of the United States. That is a very clear term. It was a clear term in 1788. It remains a clear term today. It focuses on where you were born. Who your parents are doesn't matter. Marco Rubio's parents were born in Cuba. They were Cuban citizens when Marco Rubio was born here. That doesn't matter. What matters is where you first saw the soil, where you first saw the light of day. That's an ancient saying, and that's what governs.
Well, then by that measure, what would you say about John McCain?
Well, John McCain was born on a military base, and there's another ancient doctrine which basically says if your government sends you abroad to be a diplomat or an ambassador or a member of the military, you don't lose that special citizenship status. It's an ancient exception. So John McCain fits in a comfortable spot. He was on a naval base in the United States reservation in the Canal Zone that we had occupied since, I think, 1904. So John McCain really falls in the safe zone.
Roger, you're a very smart attorney, and maybe I've just heard other smart attorneys argue otherwise, and it's like you're trying to thread the needle here that it applies to some, doesn't apply to others. On this issue, it's been argued out again and again and again whether, you know, he is a citizen by birth of the United States. It is not good enough for you, or by that thinking, that Ted Cruz was born to an American mother in Canada. That's not good enough.
Right. Well, citizen by birth is not the same thing as born. You can only be born in one place.
So when Barry Goldwater was born in a state that hadn't become a state, technically he wasn't a citizen, right?
That has never been resolved by the courts. It's an interesting side passage, but the fact that these things happened in the past, that George Romney was born in Mexico, or that Barry Goldwater was born in the territory of Arizona, no court ever had to decide that. I mean, these apparent precedents from the past are not actually precedents. They're just historical events.
Do you have a candidate in the race?
Do I personally? No. I'm interested. This is a voter-based lawsuit. Voters need to go to the polls knowing who the eligible candidates are.
Because at first blush, I would think you must be a Trump guy.
Nope. In fact, I have a separate lawsuit pending against him. You probably knew that.
Okay, so my second thought would be maybe he's a Rubio guy.
I'm representing clients in this case. My personal preferences, whatever they might be, don't govern the legal job that I have, which is to represent my clients. My clients don't want to go to the polls and vote for someone, find out that that person can't run. You know, Congressman Grayson has threatened to sue in September if Cruz is the nominee.
Well, is this the same argument that's being used in Illinois? I know there are half a dozen other states where this might come up. Is the basic argument whatever your argument is in New York?
Variations of it, yes. The lawyers in other states have made similar arguments.
Right.
Maybe they've made them to less receptive bodies. Maybe they haven't made them as well. Maybe we won't succeed. I don't say that anything that's happened in those states is dispositive. I do know in New Hampshire, the Board of Elections urged that the courts take this up. I do know that Professor Tribe at Harvard has urged that the courts take this up. I don't understand why Senator Cruz is reluctant to have the courts take this up. If he's confident that he's right, he should welcome a decision by the courts.
But you know the courts, they can be all over the map. They can make multiple decisions depending on the courts, right?
Well, of course, and that's why one would want to get this up to the United States Supreme Court.
So this isn't an agenda to torpedo him and just keep him stuck in legal limbo forever?
On the contrary, the best agenda here would be to get right up to the United States Supreme Court, and if I could just add, Antonin Scalia would have been the perfect justice to address this topic. I'm sure that irony may have occurred to folks already. He was an originalist. He was a textualist. If you look at the original meaning of the clause, natural-born citizen, that was clear in 1788. If you look at the text of the Constitution, it draws a distinction between citizens and natural-born citizens. And a textualist, such as Scalia, would say you have to give that meaning. You can't just ignore that difference.
Well, other smart lawyers disagree, but we'll see. We'll see it argued out.
Well, I just thank you for the little compliment, but the thought really is to get a decision.
That's right.
All right.
And we'll see. All right, Roger, thank you very much.
You're very welcome.